Adolf Seefeldt. The Sandman. Confirmed deaths 12. Estimated body count, between 12 and 100 plus. In Scandinavian folklore, the Sandman is a mythical character who puts people to sleep by sprinkling magical sand onto their eyes. Adolf Seefeldt, a watchmaker from Germany often called the Sandman or Uncle Tick-Tock, was responsible for a series of disturbing murders during the Nazi era, abusing and unliving at least 12 boys between 1908 and 1935. His crimes mystified authorities for their lack of visible violence. The children were found as if peacefully asleep. Although Seefeldt only confessed to having taken 12 lives since he went undetected for so long, authorities believe the real number of victims could be higher than 100. The details surrounding his life and the extent of his crimes remain murky, but his trial and subsequent execution reveal how the Third Reich handled criminal justice during this period, particularly with those deemed morally depraved. Adolf Seefeldt was trained as both a locksmith and a watchmaker. These skills eventually led him to settle in Lübeck, where he married Katharina Seefeldt, a marriage that ended in divorce in 1910. His troubled family life extended to his son, who was institutionalized due to moral offenses at the age of 19. Seefeldt himself was not free from abuse and trauma. He reportedly suffered intimate abuse at age 12, an experience that may have influenced his psychological instability and criminal tendencies. Seefeldt's first brush with the law came in 1908, when he was accused of murder. While he evaded conviction then, he spent years in prison for various predatory offenses against children. At 25, Seefeldt was first imprisoned for harassing a young boy, and psychiatrists soon diagnosed him as mentally unstable, leading to a series of incarcerations in mental institutions and prisons. This pattern of imprisonment and release allowed him to drift across Germany, continuing his crimes until he was finally apprehended. Modus operandi. Seefeldt's crimes went undetected for so long because he often traveled across Germany for his job as a watchmaker, disappearing from the area right after had committed a crime. His persona was also a favorable attribute to his heinous activities. He easily built trust with local communities, who regarded him as a quirky, harmless figure. His pattern of crimes involved targeting young boys between the ages of 4 and 12, usually dressing in sailor suits, who he often found in public places. The victims, often found in pine forest, all appeared to sleep peacefully, with no external signs of violence, which baffled the police for many years. Authorities speculate that he may have used a homemade poison, perhaps a brew concocted with natural poisons to unlive his victims, perhaps chloroform, or perhaps even suffocated his victims. Another theory states that Seefeldt would give some sort of sleeping medicine to his victims which were not meant to unlive them, just to render them unconscious so we would assault them intimately in their sleep. The victims would later succumb to hypothermia by exposure. Yet the forensic analysis of his last victims brought light to the truth regarding his modus operandi. Microscopic examinations indicated blood pressure changes on the victim, which is consistent with strangulation rather than poisoning. This revelation shifted the investigation's focus and increased the pressure to capture him. Seefeldt was eventually captured in 1936 and tried for his crimes. Interesting facts about Adolf Seefeldt's case. 1. Seefeldt always slept in the open regardless of the weather conditions. 2. Seefeldt was a master of using natural poisons. He would often concoct natural brews from plants and fungi, ensuring a painless death for his victims. 3. He was known as the Sandman because his victims, prepubescent children, were found unlived as if they were peacefully sleeping with no signs of violence or assault. 4. Despite his horrific crimes, Seefeldt was deeply religious. He would often quote long passages from the Bible and considered himself a devout Christian. 5. During one of his stay in a mental institution, he remained completely silent for 2 full years, refusing to speak to anyone. 6. His crimes occurred during the tumultuous period of the Weimar Republic and the rise of Nazism. During trial, the defense lawyer tried to spare Seefeldt's life, pleading for an insanity motion, yet the strict morals and norms of conduct promoted by the Third Reich pushed the verdict to the capital sentence. 7. On one occasion he traveled with a kidnapped boy for 3 months and let him go without taking his life. 8. Since his unlived victims were found with no marks of violence or assault, there is a police theory that states Seefeldt would only take the lives of the children he never assaulted intimately. Trial and execution. Adolf Seefeldt's trial was conducted in Schwerin in January 1936. With a jury composed of figures reflecting the Nazi ideology of moral and social responsibility, framing the case as one involving not only murder but an affront to social decency. Despite mounting evidence, Seefeldt's defense argued that his mental instability should have absolved him of direct responsibility. However, the jury ultimately sentenced him to death due to the regime's pressure to severely punish those who conducted acts of indecency. After the refusal of a plea and later a pardon, his execution was set in motion. Seefeldt was executed by guillotine on May 23, 1936.